Yes, hello. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining in. Fat Cats podcast will have space as usually on Monday. Just have a review and preview of what transpired over the weekend, rugby weekend. I hope you've had a restful weekend, and Mondays are not the easiest of days, but I hope it all went well. So, as always, we just go through the games that have transpired over the weekend. I do believe we had quite the surprises and thrills and spills in the semifinals of the premiership. So I hope your team didn't go through. Sorry, but for those who managed to enjoy the Friday and Saturday victories, kudos to you. And I think it's only fair to say good luck in the final. There can only be one winner, but all of us will win as rugby if we have a good display and a new champion who will add on to their tally. From the perspective that we'll later on discuss, Pirates has two titles, looking to add on to to get a third, and Hippos would look to be getting a maiden 15's glory in addition to the glory that they received in the sevens. I think that was 2022. Yeah, so 23, I think. Yeah, so without a doubt, lots of rugby to look forward to. And thanks for joining in. Let me just rush through some results. Okay, before I rush through the results, we're going to have a discussion of the semifinals, what transpired, what went wrong. We'll look at HSBC and what it is in respect to Uganda. Obviously, we'll have someone from the union later on in the coming weeks or so to give us their opinion or position on what this means for Ugandan rugby. But we'll have Michael from 254 Rugby to come and explain to us what uh, the HSBC series means. It just recently got concluded in LA, Los Angeles yesterday, and what it does for nations like Uganda. Kenya managed to secure its status in the Division 2 competition of the HSBC. But then the question remains, what is Division 2? What is Division 1? And what is Challenger Series in the grand scheme of things? So that is going to be answered. Isometrics is going to come on here as well and give a detailed breakdown of a few things, particularly going into the final, as well as one of those areas of a combined Hippos and Pirates lineup, courtesy of Isometrics and Podcast Podcast. Who are those 23 players this season of both sides that you would put in a somewhat of a dream team to play any other side in the league? So we look forward to having that, as well as your comments and responses to a particular few things that came up during the week. So I think we can get this started. So running through the results quick, without further ado, look at the women's premiership and what transpired over there. First one, I'll start with the walkover. Panthers getting a 20 point victory against the Nile Rapids as a walkover. Hopefully, we'll also have we'll have someone be able to explain the financing challenges that the women's teams have faced throughout this campaign and what impact it might have on the status of particular teams as they vie for the championship. So that are supposed to be at Dam Waters, but Panthers got a walkover. I don't know why Nile Rapids was not able to host the game, but hopefully when we get the news, we'll be able to share that. Avengers in Entebbe hosted Thunderbirds, but they lost that one 10-43. Phoebe Nakalembe scored 2 tries for Thunderbirds, and she was the MVP. And then Makerere, the Use were defeated by the Black Pearls 46-5. Grace Auma among just 2 players in the weekend who got 3 tries on a particular match day. So lots of hat-tricks there. When you look at the relegation playoffs, Mongas managing to defeat Eagles 25-16. Robin Odrua, who was one of the top scorers last weekend in the tie, continued with his form. He scored a try and 15 points and was MVP with a 4 out of 6 goal rate. We'll break that down in a bit. And then Warriors, who got a walkover last weekend against Elgon Wolves because of challenges with the ambulance and failure to properly equip it, managed to host this weekend at Legends, but lost at home 28-32 against the Elgon Wolves. And Salim Katumba scored 3 tries, one of 2 players to score 2 tries, 3 tries this weekend in the relegation playoff. So doing simple math here, the teams that have been relegated from the Premiership men, that is Eagles. Eagles will have to ply their trade next season in the Central Championship. And the Elgon Wolves, who had they equipped their ambulance and their performance at Legends, would have had something to say about that, but they will be playing their rugby in the Eastern Championship next season. So without a doubt, it appears that it's going to be one of those particular seasons for these two teams. And Mongers and Warriors live to die another day in the Nile Special Rugby Premiership. There will be Warriors in their second year running in the relegation battle, and without a doubt, they will be able to stay and lay claim to putting up a challenge next year. When you look at obviously the Nile Special Rugby Premierships semi-final leg 2, I think we're very much certain about results, but for avoidance of doubt, we have the Cobs on Friday with home fixture losing this particular one 22-27 to Hippos. Hippos had Yasin Waswa score 17 points with a 4 out of 7 goal rate. That will be broken down as well. And then the Black Pirates, obviously, hosting us at KPA. They managed to beat the Heathens 25-19. In this particular game, Alex Aturinda was the MVP, not scoring, but assisting 1 try with lots of turnovers and good plays in open play. And Yasin Waswa was the MVP in the particular game against Cobs. So that's a breakdown of what transpired over the weekend. And as has been shared, we will be having Issa Matrix speak to us, as well as Mike of 254 Rugby, telling us about this particular effect of the rejigged HSBC World Series. And I'm going to share his particular profile of 254 rugby in the comments section. So please give that platform a follow as well, and do check out their YouTube if you like. If you're a fan of regional rugby, particular following what's going on in Kenya. They're quite consistent with the follow-ups and reviews of what has transpired. Notably, there's a update on my YouTube here where they talked to Kevin Wambua on the LA Sevens performance by the Kenya Shujaa. So just give them a follow, and then you can always keep updated with what's transpiring in Kenya as well as international rugby. And without a doubt, we'll be doing something with them for the Rugby Africa Cup. So considering it's Uganda versus Kenya, I think it's only fair that the two platforms can sit down and ably engage in what looks to be one of the top games on day one of the Rugby Africa Cup, particularly at Nambole, 4 p.m. if everything is to remain in position for that. So, Michael Isometrics have sent the microphones. Just do, when you have a second, do give us an approval, and then we can start this particular discussion. Okay, I think this was 3 days ago. On Thursday, I think World Rugby posted on its account, HSBC Sevens, about the new format introducing the Sevens 2026. But obviously, this has been in discussion for quite some years, not some period of time, and I've shared the link in the space. But one of the most the sentiments in the comment section is that hang your heads in shame. On the eve of the playoffs, you drop this, protect the elites. 8 men's teams, 8 ladies teams have traveled halfway around with the prospect of joining top table next year. Words can't explain how much I hate world rugby taking opportunities away from tier 2 nation countries to make strides in rugby simply because you lack the marketing know how to promote a great product, which is sevens. These archaic fossils need to give way. They are destroying the game. With these useless changes in the format every now and then, you might as well abolish sevens as a whole. Dustbin. I mean, plenty more comments here and there about what has happened. But I think here one of the key pioneers of I think there was even very big oppositions. I think I saw, what's his name? The US, I think, is he a captain or someone? Is it called Thomasin? Make a comment. I saw former coach of Kenya, Mark Friday, give his remarks about this, and many have done so. But now I think I can just hand over this to Michael. Michael, how are you? How are you doing? And I hope everything is well where you are. Tell us what the weekend was like from a Shuja perspective, and then we can dive into the HSBC and what impacts it may have for teams like Uganda.
Well, yeah, thanks for the opportunity as always to be on Fat Cats podcast. It's always a pleasure. The weekend, I think for Shuja, they did what they had to do, but I get a feeling that even though they went around their business in Los Angeles, they were deflated because, heading into the tournament, they knew that they were going to play in a playoff that was going to secure their status for the next season in the top tier. Of course, it was an open secret that World Rugby was planning these changes, but for them to actually pull it off in the manner that we expected with that press release just before the tournament, I think, if you ask me, lacks a bit actually lacks class, not even a bit of class. It's crass. I think it's insensitive because look at it, to all the teams who had traveled, the 8 teams in the men's and women's competitions, all fighting for a chance to play in the top tier next season, and then you're told that you can't feature. Like I said again, it was a really appalling decision by World Rugby.
Yeah, quite appalling, I think, considering the nature of announcement and how it was done at a time when teams very much from the Challenger Series expected a fight for the top, especially how your ladies topped the Challenger Series and won that, even beating, I think, the perennial African champions, that is South Africa. But now, without a doubt, I think we've seen on your channel, talking to the women, talking to the men, deflated, winning, but deflated. But where does this leave Kenya, particularly, and the students program?
Oh yeah, I think there now has to be a rethink about the sevens program in Kenya, particularly for the men, because there was a lot of resources going into playing in all those tournaments on the World Rugby 7 series, as it has been in its previous and current forms. But I feel if I was still within the Kenya Rugby Union setup, it would be an opportunity to now spread the resources evenly between the men's and women's teams, because both of them are in the HSB Sevens Division 2, where there's only 6 teams per gender and playing across 3 events. So that's where it leaves the Sevens program in Kenya at a crossroads and in need of a rethink.
Okay, but even before we talk about Division Two, Division One Challenger Series, so just kindly take our listeners today what through the changes that happened, particularly creation of Division One. So let's start. What's Division One, and
Mhm.
what is Division Two? We could start from
Okay.
there.
Yeah, Division One has 8 men's and 8 women's team. They will compete in 6 events on the World Series. That's Division One. So it takes effect immediately, which ideally is from the 2025-2026 season.
Okay, and particularly in Division One is the teams that finished top 8.
Yes, it's the teams that finished top 8 at the close of the regular season, which was in Singapore, where Kenya actually got to the final and lost to Fiji.
Okay, so Division One, I think for those who are listening, Division One is quite clear. That's um, 8 teams that finished in the placement positions of 1 to 8 at Singapore. So LA did not necessarily affect. They knew their status, they were safe, and the other 4 had to fight. Now, particularly, Michael, the other 4 had to fight for what particularly?
Well, initially they were fighting for promotion because, as it has been for quite a while, there's been a promotion relegation playoff. And that was the agreement that the teams signed with World Rugby at the start of this season. So they were heading into Los Angeles, where the teams ranked 9th to 12th were playing against the top 4 teams from the Challenger Series for the 4 slots in next season's World Series. That is initially what they were fighting for. But with the reconstitution of the World Series, it now turned to a point where they were playing for places in Division Two, and they will be joined by two other teams. It's yet to make sense. Probably the top two teams from the Challenger Series. Those are the nitty gritties that we're still yet to understand.
And with that, Kenya, obviously, I saw the Kenya ladies beat the South Africa in that particular final. I think it was 17-12. And with that, obviously, they secured their promotion to Division Two, as well as Shuja as well, finishing in Division Two. But now, so you get, I think those who are listening, you get an indication of what that means, particularly for Uganda to get to HSBC series. I think back in the day, there were 16 teams, and then they lowered them to 12 to match the qualifying format for the Olympics, the number of teams that are taken to the Olympics. So if Uganda had entered the HSBC World Series quite early as Kenya did, would have the opportunity. Those days we used to come and play as guest teams. I think we did do that many times when it was in Cape Town, when it was in George, as well as when it's in Dubai. But now you have a situation where that reduced to 12, and now you have it cut down to 8. So the four teams that didn't go through, two teams will go to the division, and then the other two will go down to, I think they'll go back to qualify for the Challenger Series, and then the different regional winners will constitute the other teams that will make the 6, if I'm not mistaken, to play in the Challenger Series, to play in the Division 2, of which the top 4 of the Division 2 will go and play a tournament again next year to try and see if they can enter the HSBC Division 1. And then we come down to the Challenger Series, where Uganda is. Now, what my understanding is of this is that Uganda now has to go through the Challenger Series route again. And how do you do that? You have to first participate in the Rugby Africa tournament, which is going to be held in Mauritius, I think in June, I think 22nd or 23rd or 24th, 25th. So for 2 days, top tournament in Mauritius, managed to win both last year, but both legs last year. But now Uganda has to go through that challenge to win that, and I think because it's one winner that will be going through, you go all the way to the Challenger Series that will be played over different legs as per what has been shared in the space. But Michael, what does that mean now for nations of Uganda's stature, Zimbabwe, Madagascar, that now need to go through with their sevens program?
Okay, yeah, just before I get into that, a clarification. The Challenger series, now the Challenger event, it'll be one event. That is what World Rugby is calling Division 3. It'll be a standalone event with 8 teams per gender, qualifying from the regions. That now brings me to what teams like Uganda, Zimbabwe, Madagascar need to do. It means they need to dominate on the African continent, basically, come out tops at the what do you call it, at the Rugby Africa sevens, so that they can get their pathway to the global event underway. So probably it means you know what can I say, investing thoroughly for that particular tournament, preparing thoroughly for that particular tournament, and probably forces the unions of these particular countries to ensure that they have their best available sevens squads for the Rugby Africa sevens, because as you and I know it, it is still played as a one-off tournament over a weekend in a selected host venue.
Yeah, I think as you can see or hear, is that from this perspective, you have you have teams that are going to come all the way to Mauritius, and dedicate their best players with a looming Rugby Africa Cup 15s World Cup qualifier on the rocks, on the card, sorry, soon happening in July in Uganda. And maybe just to draw something from last year, this country, Burkina Faso, had many of their seventh players also come to Uganda last year to play in the 15s tournament. So, and so did Uganda. We had a few players who played in the Rugby Africa Sevens, and then they quickly had to convert their attention to the Rugby Africa Cup. So that goes to show you how important it's going to be for rugby nations, especially of Uganda's stature, to strategize and now dedicate resources. Now, in light of this, I just want to get your perspective from a challenges from a finance perspective. Uganda had to withdraw the ladies because of the travel implications of a visa to Poland, and there was no likelihood, without any doubt, that they would be able to make it. Though other unconfirmed reports state that it was purely a financial decision to go and do the cheaper option of Cote d'Ivoire and get promoted to the high performance division of the Women's Rugby Africa Cup, as opposed to going to Poland and trying to do the unthinkable. But from your experience and your views, what do you think will have what this new format will do in terms of rugby financing as well as development of sevens programs all over the continent?
Well, I still have mixed feelings because you're now making it a one-off event. The Challenger Series is a one-off for teams that are aspiring to qualify to the global stage. The African competition as well is a one-off. That is me as the rugby fan, but me as the administrator, I probably would be rubbing my hands in glee because I'm able to free up finances, and with a set date, I can call up a team much earlier, prepare them, and get them ready for that one weekend. And that one weekend is in the Africa Sevens, and then again repeat that when we are heading into the challenger competition whenever it will take place. Now the challenge will come later on, assuming that you've gone to the challenger series and now secured qualification to the division 2 competition. But many people like saying let's cross that bridge when we get there. So those are the scenarios that I would look at.
Yeah, I think from a Ugandan perspective, now if I could just bring in the other speakers on here, the Ugandan perspective, I think this particular year has been one where we have seen sevens players communicate their availability to play for the national team, particularly 15, which is an added boost to the manpower that played last year's competition. So players like Isaac Massa, Ian Munyani, and others, Aaron Ofoiroth, have somewhat, if I use the word, declared for the 15s this year and have been in camp training and doing their best to be selected. And with that change of allegiance from sevens to 15s, it opened room for new players to come and play who had even been part of the sevens program last year to come and play in the sevens program this year. And they didn't do quite well, obviously. Baptism by fire for many in the Cape Town tournament in March. But that has given them a platform to obviously learn how to build chemistry, teamwork, and be able to challenge further. So, Ruben, I hope you had a nice weekend and a nice Monday. But now into the thick of things, where does that leave Uganda in light of the changes at HSBC series and the fact that we now, without a doubt, have to win the Rugby Africa Cup as we have been doing before, but much more added importance now to be able to reach the Challenger Series and keep the program alive.
Hi, how are you? Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yeah, good evening to everyone. Very good breakdown there by Michael. As always, is very, very articulate with what he has to say. I think when I was listening to this conversation and, of course, looking at the new format that comes in, of course, with everything new, usually there's a bit of resistance here and there, and of course, everything has pros and cons. But for Uganda, it really takes us back to the planning stage. And I've always been one that says that we are not fully ready for entirely separating the 15s and the 7s. And with this new particular tournament and all that lies at stake, I think it's very important for us to, one, plan on how we can really get the best out of the talent pool that we have as a rugby community and as a rugby base, and how we can be able to fit it both into the expectations that come with Rugby Africa and also the implications that go into, of course, the new format.
Ruben, are you there? Have you gone off? I don't know. I think Ruben has dropped off.
Um,
So yes, Ruben, you're back.
Sorry, I'm in a place with very poor network. I don't know where you stopped hearing me from.
I think you said the planning phase, the union planning phase.
Yeah, maybe just to summarize what I was trying to say, it is now that we have to really align properly when we are trying to plan for both the women and the men. Looking at, of course, the new code of the sevens program, and then also how it fits into Rugby Africa Cup for the Africa for the competition and for the people that are really going through the Africa channel, and then also how that fits into the global program. So for the Uganda Rugby Union and stakeholders at large, it's important for us to see how that fits into our plans, both financially and also with the talent pool and with the coaching as well when it comes to both men and women. While looking at the sevens, but also considering the 15s and how we can be able to get the most out of both sides of the equation. It's really one that I know we have been in similar situations where we always maybe see something new coming up and we are always either worried or a bit skeptical of why things are adjusting. But then also to a certain extent, you'll find that maybe perhaps there is a plus side to it. So um, maybe it's one that also need to just pay attention to and experience, and from there then we can see a way forward on how better to maneuver it. Of course, this also comes into play with us trying to look at what our competitors or what our neighbors are doing. Kenya, we're also now trying to have an eye on Zimbabwe and what they are doing, so it's very important for us to, while we're also planning for our own particular program, how we benchmarking against our neighbors and the people who we want to compete against at that level.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think for me, in a few fora, I've shared my view, and I'm like, I think this particular change or twist in the format allows us now, as Uganda, to now rebuild properly our sevens program. Um, but to rebuild the sevens program, it means that your participation in the Challenger Series must be assured. So, in light of the situation now, the question always remains that how best prepared are we as a nation to go ahead and prepare and defend the title that we won last year in Mauritius? How prepared is it? I think most of the time, most of the players have been playing 15s for now, obviously trying to get their teams into stride. But with the season ending this weekend, where does that leave the program, particularly for those who are going to be training for sevens? They will have roughly, I think, 3 weeks of training, 3 weeks, 4 weeks of training before they can go ahead and participate in that particular tournament. We all with the hope to adjust quickly from 15s to 7s, and at the same time be able to win and secure that particular aspect. From my particular view, I would be very much confident in saying that I think this gives us now the opportunity to rebuild. There, obviously, the sevens program will have opportunity. If we don't get into the Challenger Series, there is the national sevens through which we can rebuild talent, identify and build talent from there, and then also test these players at the Safari Sevens that are that are going to be back in Nairobi, as opposed to Kakamega. Is it Kakamega? What was the other tournament? Yeah, so that will be the option currently at the moment. But maybe just bring back Michael here. Is that now, Michael? Obviously, you talked about distribution of resources for the ladies as well as the men. What few ideas would you want to give Uganda, or tips of head in respect to how to handle this conundrum, especially with the budding need to grow of teams rugby in Uganda?
Yeah, well, I think women's sport generally in these two countries is a good opportunity to showcase what the sport can offer. We've seen Uganda equally coming of age, the Lady Cranes in the 7s and 15s versions of the games. So I think it would be to call upon the stakeholders in the sport to also I don't know how they're doing it, but to actually go out there to sponsors and say, hey, we've also got this product here that you can sponsor, and trust you me, when you sponsor in particular the women's teams, I believe you'll get a lot more return on investment than the men. That is to take nothing away from the men. Just that, for these girls, some of their backstories, both in Kenya and Uganda, make them being in these privileged positions pretty good. They take it seriously. That would be one way to go about it. Another way would now be to look for sponsorships that are equal and that cut across both the men's and women's sports, because at the end of the day, what is the end game here? You both want to qualify for the global stage, and how you're doing it, you're actually doing it by taking part in similar events which are no different, and that would be the way to go about it. Literally now just call for a level sponsorship package for the men's and women's teams as they go in pursuit of these goals, which are going to showcase Ugandan rugby on the continental and global stage.
Yes, thanks for that, Michael. Issa Matrix, do you have just something to add, and then we can have our closing remarks in respect to this topic? But as I said earlier, Michael runs the 254 Kenya Rugby page. I have that in the comment section. They do have the YouTube channel as well, so do give them a follow and keep on track in respect to regional rugby, that is Kenyan rugby. If you want to get keep tabs on your teams in Kenya that you support or follow, that's a good page to keep track on. And obviously, with Fat Cats, we'll do something in respect to the Rugby Africa Cup, considering Uganda and Kenya will be facing off against each other. But yeah, Issa, if you have something to say in respect to this and what its impact may be from a Ugandan perspective.
Hello. Thank you, Edwin and Michael and Ruben. Good evening, everyone. Well, for me, personally, on the sevens, there's really not much for me to add. It's just that it's quite noticeable that as the series or the series setup evolves, we we get further and further away from the the seven series. Like you mentioned, Edwin, there was a time where we were an invitational team to Cape Town, or was it George Sevens to Dubai Sevens? And then the format of the Challenger Series came in. We've not gotten to qualify over the past 3 seasons. And then there is this new format that will push us further away. So development wise, it would be good for us, but I believe we are a bit further away from the larger pie that is more interesting. That's my only take on the changes made by World Rugby.
Yeah, thanks, man. Me, I feel like it's pushing us further. I think the fact that we're being pushed away further gives us the opportunity now to sit down and really make the plan to have these players grow into. I know we have had the household names of the sevens that you couldn't name a seven side for Uganda without these particular players appearing on the field. But with this, it allows us a chance to take a step back and rebuild the program all over again, whether it means getting new players, getting new advisors or coaches, getting new lines of funding. It gives us a plan to draw the new page on sevens rugby in Uganda. And with that, hopefully, in the period of time, that gives you an opportunity to assess and at the same time grow. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's either this year or next year where the Sevens World Cup was supposed to be. And I think this particular tournament was supposed to act as also a World Cup qualifier for the Sevens. But that tournament as well, I think, has been unofficially shelved. I think what World Rugby does, I may be wrong, but I think they drop a few rumors here and there to test the atmosphere, what the reaction is, and then they go ahead. So I think I saw and I think I read it on one of these spaces where we had the communication that they're trying to make Olympics the prime event of sevens rugby as opposed to a sevens World Cup. Michael, do you know anything about that, or it's
Yeah,
something
well,
you're hearing for the first time?
yeah, well, you see, with the rejigging of the seventh series, you play your series and then there is a world championship. Now, also one thing that happens is the top 4 teams from Division 2 will play in that world championship at the end of the season, which is in effect the new Rugby World Cup sevens. They have quietly gotten rid of the Rugby World Cup sevens, which was held every 4 years in a similar manner to the 15s World Cup.
So, guys, if you had never watched a sevens World Cup, sorry, at a venue, I'd also made some plans here and there to watch one, but it looks like now those dreams are over. So we either have to watch a championship series in HSBC. I think you saw a few clips of Ugandans, Josh Ntale, who acted as AR. I think so Eric Kasita, China, Anthony Chinene as well, in I think a picture or two there. So that basically goes to show you that the Rugby World Cup sevens, of which our boys have been in the last 2 editions, I think 2018, and then the edition in Cape Town as well. That's no more. So it's either the Olympics or you go through the HSBC World Championship, which is, as Marco says, quietly replacing the Sevens World Cup. So quite the tough news to hear on a Monday morning. Now, Michael, obviously with Rugby Africa coming up, mindful of that, what are the preparations in Kenya like? We know your union has had some issues with the president and the like, but those I think have been put to bed. But What is the preparation like, and what do we expect from Kenya coming into July?
Yeah, well, the preparations have been quietly going on. There have been a series of alignment camps taking place. These alignment camps started in January. The team hasn't yet gotten into like full unified training. So Jerome Parvota has had a series of alignment camps with players in Kakamega, in Nairobi, and Nakuru. We are heading into the Rugby Super Series anytime now. I think after that, a decision will be made on the squad. Now, in terms of what to expect, I really do expect a bag of surprises based on the just concluded Kenya Cup season. Um, we don't know how that squad selection would be. Obviously, in the forwards, we do expect to see some of the usual faces, the likes of Ephraim Oduor, of Cabras Sugar in the front row, George Nambua, Andy Kolo Molo, who debuted for the Simbas last year. Those are players that I expect to be in the squad. However, in the backline, there's been an emergence of young talent across the Kenyan league this particular season, and quite a number of players will be looking to knock on the doors of selection when that squad is made. In terms of the fixture, I know that obviously Kenya will be looking to show up against Uganda. There have been plans for the team to head down to South Africa for a 6-week training camp. We're in the month of May, so let's see if that materializes. That is what's happening now. If there is anything going on, we'll obviously be updating on our handles and obviously sharing with you as we engage in conversations.
Okay. Thank you very much, Michael. I think thank you for your time. I don't know if Ruben has one last remark to you, but Ruben, anything?
Yeah, listening to everything that has been said, I think the one thing that uh, really comes to mind is how I don't know if it's right for us to say that World Rugby is maybe a touch out of connection with the rest of the world and what the actual intentions are for everything that is really being put in place. But then also, it goes back to the tier two and the tier three nations to really understand how are they also helping themselves to maybe try and better their own levels of rugby. Take for instance, besides the Rugby Africa Cup, I know of course when you look at all of these things, you consider aspects of funding and everything, but what is the intentionality behind trying to create, let's say, a sevens tournament that runs maybe in different countries beyond the Rugby Africa Sevens? So that we can see that we have a lot of competition, even for when we are not competing at those higher stages. How do these nations?
Ruben, are you there?
I am there. You can't hear me.
We talked about you saying the tier two nations should plan for themselves regional tournament.
My network must be really bad. But anyway, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so what I was trying to say is that in everything that's happening, yes, there are all these things that seem to be putting some of these nations even farther away from certain competitions. But then again, how are we or how our bodies also being intentional in trying to create opportunities or competitions that help us at least stay relevant? One of the biggest reasons why you don't find many of these, especially in rugby, some of these countries also participating maybe at the level that Kenya is at, is because of the exposure that is gotten. So how much competition at a certain level do we get? How much competition are we trying to see these countries really trying to go for? Take for instance, can we have something, maybe some invitationals at tier three level or tier two level? Can we have, besides the Rugby Africa Sevens, is there a chance to also create another cross nation
rugby sevens tournament that maybe you can go to a particular country for a weekend and then actually play against the same nations that you'd be competing against, with the bigger picture being trying to improve year in and year out. And as things are getting even more challenging, how are we making sure that we stay competitive and we stay improving as a country? Edwin, I hope you're still hearing me.
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, and then finally, I think it also comes down now also to within the country. What are we trying to do to be intentional? And using maybe Uganda as a case study. Um, you look at women's rugby and the quality of competition in women's rugby. How are we being more intentional in trying to improve the competition there, and also trying to expand the talent pool from which we can have a selection for the national teams, both sevens and 15s. But if we're even just focus on sevens and the results we have seen come from sevens, how are we supporting to make sure that there is a conveyor belt that is constantly churning quality players, and also to encourage competition to push forward? That is also something that now the union and all the authorities that be need to figure out how to make it happen. When you know what you want to do, then other things come into play, like, okay, now what do we need? Do we need these kind of resources? Who can we talk to? But if you do not have that idea, then also how are you in position to support these ladies to prosper? I mean, we have seen them and we have seen the kind of results they can really give us with very, I don't want to say it's the best preparation we can honestly have. I believe we can have better preparation, and I believe a lot can be done. When it comes to the men now, I think um, I wouldn't be bad to say that this current cycle of sevens players, especially majority of them, maybe some of them still have a lot to offer. But the group that has been running, I think, for the last two rugby cycles, which is about 4 years each cycle, is coming to either its optimum or it's past its optimum. So how are we supplementing it to maybe expand the squad, trying to bring in a lot more younger players, increase competition options, and also trying to see that we are creating maybe more camps, both sevens and 15s, to really push further for how we are trying to improve the game locally in Uganda, that feeds into, of course, the international competitions. But then again, me, I still think that we should not also ring fence that, okay, these players are set out only for sevens. I don't think we are there yet as Uganda. Yes, maybe towards certain tournaments, or maybe let's say 3 months or so, we can have a certain specific group start to train to build chemistry, to build competition and things like that. But then when it's open season, let us have players compete, both sevens and 15s. Let people have the chance to come in the sevens camp and try to earn their number. Let people go in the 15s camp and try to earn their number there as well. So let us not try to limit players where we have someone that has been maybe for years so fixated being in a sevens program that now all of a sudden at some point through emergency we are now fixing him in the 15th program, but they have no clue of how to play in the 15th program because of that ring fencing. So those are some of the things that we need to consider, of course, not forgetting, of course, resources and everything that's involved. But when it comes to the players, both men and women, I think that is really what comes to mind when we go to this whole picture of what World Rugby Sevens has really brought up.
Yeah, I just like to give one pointer before I go, and it comes down to something that Ruben raised, which is more like what are the regional bodies doing? Because especially in the 15s and 7s versions of the game, yes, it's all good that we do have the Rugby Africa Cup taking place in Kampala, but again, you and I, quite a number of us, we recall the days before COVID when Rugby Africa Cup was spread out over a series of months, exciting fixtures, you play home and away, that we compress it into a week, I think, probably points to the state of the game in the 7s and 15s versions. And I think the unions should now lobby the continental bodies to ensure that there's more high class quality, and there's there's high class competition and frequent competition on the continent as well, particularly in light of the steps made by World Rugby. Thanks, guys, for hosting me.
Thank you, Michael, for always joining in when called upon. Guys, do give the page in the comments, rugby 254 rugby a follow, and also do check out their content on YouTube. Very much looking forward to doing something for Rugby Africa Cup later on. Thank you very much, Michael. Issa Metrics, let's get into the thick of things. You told me we have some key stats that we're looking at as we go into this particular end of the tournament, as well as the combined Hippos Pirates 23, who are the starters, who are the 8 finishers, and yes.
Okay. So about the stats, I think I'll just give a hint on some of the criteria or some brief background on this particular fixture. I do remember last year when you were making the build up for the semifinals of last year, Hippos was facing Pirates, and I remember I told you and Ruben that the other semifinal was the Old Firm Derby, the teams that have dominated Uganda rugby, that was Heathens and Cobs. Every category when it comes to Ugandan rugby, they are the top two, whether it's silverware, producing players for the national team and so on, finals appearances and all that. And then on the other side, there was what you could call the new farm, or the guys who are toppling their existing order. Little did we know that they would be in the final this year, so it's quite befitting that we make a 23 of the season for those particular teams. I think I'll leave that to you to publish probably tomorrow or Wednesday. But the thing I'll mention is at this stage of the season, criteria-wise, we shall have to consider how many games the particular person has played. And since both teams have played 15 games at this stage, I think a good qualifier would be 15 games for a particular position. You could find that given the depth of Pirates, you're going to have a lot of rotations you're going to have a lot of you're going to see a lot of squad members they've used compared to Hippos, because Pirates is deeper. There's some positions where they employ quite a lot of people compared to Hippos. When you base on the semi-final series between Cobs and Hippos, you find that the front row of Hippos, actually, I think the entire tight five or the entire scrum, the starting positions didn't change over the 2 games. But for all the other clubs, I think even maybe Heathens, but for Cobs and Pirates, the starters sort of changed over the 2 games. You could see Ivaziwe started the first game, but he didn't start the second one. For Pirates, you saw Umar Duff in the first game, but in the second game it was I think that was Rukundo and Ariho. Ariho started both games. Didi was on the bench in the second and not in the first. So from my I'm yet to update after the semi-final round, but I saw about 43 players that Pirates has used the entire season. When I posted about Hippos, there were about 35. So, but you're going to look at guys who've at least made 10 appearances in the season, preferably started the particular games. So there's going to be a bit of a contest in some of these positions. I hope there is no disagreement on them. Because anyway, the qualifiers will help guide on this particular matter. In terms of additional stats, we initially quarterfinal first leg, I think for 3 out of the 4 games, there was some extra information on at least the hookers on line-out jumpers and the penalties conceded, but you could not put a particular face to who caused that particular penalty. Moving forward to the semi-final stage, I sort of filtered out particular parameters to look at. Of course, for guys in the back line, passes were also part of the statistics we are capturing. Kicking, whether they get the ball and run is also something we are looking at. Aerial contests is something I started thinking about after the second leg. I'll have to look at the raw information collected for the first legs and see if it's something we can add to the computation. And for the forwards, of course, things like carries and ruck participation. Defense is still hard to capture. Defense is still very difficult to assign tackles to people, given the resources we have in terms of the camera angles we have access to. Even in some of these carries or these ruck participations, you have to mark some people as unclear or unknown. But later on it can be corrected for some to I think to a degree of 95% it can be accurate. Yeah, so for basically there it will be factoring in the work they've done from the beginning of the season to now. That is, appearances was sort of met the criteria of these 10 appearances or these 10 stats in that position. And then their contributions on the pitch, we really know what they've done in terms of scoring, in terms of efficiency for the kickers, in terms of points and tries. And then for the semi-finals, we have information on assists as well, and the items I mentioned. So it will be quite interesting to do this particular thing. I think I believe it can be ready. It can be ready on your end by tomorrow. It can be ready on your end. It will be interesting to look at how dominant the pack of hippos has been, and then who you choose to put in that 23 from the hippos pack vis-a-vis the outstanding Pirates players. Then you look at how the backline strength of Pirates, and then of course not to mention on the other end there is guys who stood out like Yasin Waswa or Yasin Waiswa. I'm yet to check, but I think it's Malcolm Okello who had scored the most points in a semi-final game last year against Cobs. I don't know. I'm yet to confirm whether Yasin Waiswa matched that particular stat. So those are the main things we shall consider in making this particular squad of a combined 23 of hippos and Pirates for the season. Yeah. So, Edwin, is there anything to add on this particular matter? Ooh.
Yes, sorry, I don't know what happened on my end. I think I got disconnected, but can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I think thanks for that breakdown. As rugby fans, we always get annoyed here and there. So you can't say you don't expect any reaction. So good or bad, I think once the parameters are clear, it becomes very evident on who is and who is not picked and why. And with the hope that it's a 23-man squad, it means that starters and finishers obviously will very much be accounted for. It can't be a whole Pirates team, nor can it be a whole Hippos team. So looking forward to the best. But as we go into the discussion of the semifinals, what were your key things you looked out for, and what did you see in these games that were quite expressive from those obviously in light of Rugby Africa Cup, but also from a perspective of pushing their teams to win and go to the final.
Ah, okay. So for me, I'll begin with a Friday game. I didn't mention it on social media or anywhere, but I think I told someone leading up to the game that I think Hippos has a strong pack, but I think in an 80-minute setting, I thought they would come up short. To be honest, I really did, because the rugby we've been following in the last, I could say in the last 8-10 years globally and also locally. Basically the bench is important, especially for forward. So I really thought Cobs would have an advantage on that. That in the earlier intensity of the game, they would suffer, which actually they did. I just thought they had enough in the tank on the bench, but the gentleman was not on the bench, Kimboa, and true to their form, Hippos were intense even in the 81st minute on that last scrum. So to me, it's the intensity of the scrum that they always honestly made noise about it. I just always thought scrum intensity is something that you have to sustain in over 80 minutes, and the bench would factor in. But they use the same guys, the same guys over 81 minutes. Practically, Fahad Maido, I could say in that game, did the work of two props, because ideally you'd want not like how Pirates did it. You take off who was it? I think it was Ariho. You bring on Ruhweza. Of the two props you have, at least one of them is not going to play 80 minutes. But these guys pushed the entire 80 minutes, and to me that was key. I've also mentioned here before that on the international stage we are likely to have the weaker scrum. It's over the years it has always been that way. In the test arena we usually have the smaller scrum, but I think there's some ideas we might need to borrow from them in terms of intensity. The other thing I really Cobs had a chance to go 5 games this season, leading for less than 20. I think I said it was less than 30 minutes and win. But people are saying their luck ran out. I'm starting to believe so. To me, it's just congratulations to Hippos. The intensity in the scrum, I really didn't see it. That was a standout for me in that game. For the Pirates and Heathens game, basically, I think that one, it was more of stats aside, it was more of what Pirates is trying to do is more of legacy defining. There's articles of Marvin Odom, and I think there was that Observer interview, like what motivated him to focus on winning or building Pirates to the point they are at. I think it's a 2023 article. If I get the link, I'll share it. But it's like every time they were taunted for coming up second. So you have a guy who's, I think in the Pirates Trophy cabinet, he might have been absent for only the 2007 Uganda Cup win, but he has been involved in all the other ones as either a player or part of the coaching team. So to have a club that has been through all those phases of, there was a particular point where every time you came up second, you are not patted on the back for how far you had come. It was just that you guys can't do it. You can't get over the hump, and then you get over the hump, then you win again, and then in this particular season you face Heathens 3 times. One of the teams that has given you difficulty over the years. You face them 3 times and you beat them on 3 occasions in one season, including home and away. On the way to the final, I think that's important. And what they are trying to do basically, Of course, they have a chance to reduce the drought distance, the drought between the trophies you win. The other time when they won in 2018, it took about that was what 5 years to 2023 to win another league title. So right now they have a chance to lessen that drought gap to basically a 2 year. They just had a hiccup last year, and then they have a good chance of winning it this year. That speaks to the club they are trying to build. They're trying to build what they saw, what challenged them, what Cobs had, winning 3 in a row or 5 in a row. What Heathens did 5 in a row. That's the kind of legacy winning club they are trying to build. You win one, probably some people could whisper that, oh, it's potentially a fluke. You win 2, now you have people's attention. You win a 3rd one, and you're like, okay, this is a place we go to win trophies. And on the other end of the final, you have Hippos. There's been some exchanges about mentality and all that, and they're basically chasing what those guys have done is exactly what they want to do. And in their eyes, Hippos, they count Pirates in that mold of those clubs that they want to topple. To them, they don't see any difference between Cobs or Heathens or Pirates. They just want to topple them. So to me, it was for Hippos, it was the scrum. For Pirates, it was the legacy defining win of this is the kind of club we want to be. Established. It's a winning culture. You come here to get trophies, and those were my key takeaways from the semi-finals. The rest of the story will be in the statistics we release.
Yeah, also me from my end, watching the semi-finals, I think what stood out very much importantly was I think the dominance of the set piece and how it allowed you a platform to go ahead and play good rugby. I think you could clearly see from the Hippos, they managed to utilize their set piece quite well and be able to come and dominate accordingly where they had the opportunity to do so. Rather unfortunately, from the perspective of the Cobs, I think those 2 injuries they suffered, I think the absence of Blair as well as Chimboa kind of cost them the opportunity to be able to have that late surge as they had always done. And in this particular game, I think what you could honestly say about it is that Hippos played 80 minutes consistently, as opposed to the near misses they had last season, as well as the 2 games they had this season with Cobs. Ruben, what do you have to say about the Cobs game? Ruben, what anything to say about the Cobs game as we go ahead? Isa, can you hear me?
Yeah, Edwin, I can hear you. I think Ruben, it's the network probably.
Okay, makes sense. So I think just going back to the Cobs game, I think obviously starting it off with the scores that they made, I think the scrum, what people need to understand is that I think South Africa used the scrum as a very good platform to give them dominance over other teams in the World Cup. One of the key clips of the documentary Chasing the Sun was one particular clip where they talked about the French forwards and that the French forwards, whenever you kick the ball, they always stand in the middle and they just stand back. Then the fullback kicks the ball back. Then the line out is here. Then they just walk to the line out. So the logic was, why don't we cause those forwards to burn energy to move from, let's say, the 22 or not the 22, but the the 10-meter line of their half, to go all the way for a scrum that we are very much prepared for and will be able to come out on top. And in doing that, they managed to cause quite problems on the French, and they gave away a penalty. So the scrum has always been used as a tool of attack, not just one of resetting play. And I think with that particular game, Hippos very much showed that they can do that. And without a doubt, Aziz scoring the first try, converted, Yassin scoring a penalty to make it 10-0, meaning that Hippos were now leading by 5. And then Ian Munyani obviously scored that try. And Cobs went behind again further with another penalty, 7-13 at halftime. But for those who have been Cobs fans and had watched a game or two of theirs, I think the confidence was very much there. And with that particular, what was it, the water break, where Hippos seemed to be blowing away. At one particular point, it was 7-19. And it looked like, okay, now this looks a little bit difficult to overturn in terms of deficit. Cobs quickly scored a try. And then they also scored a penalty right in front of the post, and then they're back in the game. And with that, you had an aggregate score of like nearly, I think it was around there 40-41. And all the hard work that the Hippos had done was just simply done by a mere break. And I think maybe a few conversations of tactics after the water break that changed everything in this particular game. And you could arguably say, in a span of like 5 minutes, Cobs just made a lead that was quite insurmountable, 1 point at that particular point. And then obviously the seesaw between Hippos and Cobs, but Cobs get a penalty try, and now it's 20-22. And at that point, Cobs is going through on aggregate. But I mean, as fate had it, I think Joseph Aredo skewed a kick out on the full, and then from that moment on, it was just Hippos pressure after pressure. There was no getting out of that 22. There was no effort on their end, I say, particularly to try and neutralize the power of the Hippos. The Hippos were quite immense, and for every, I think, scrum, the hand was always going out, and that's going to be very, very important for the Hippos when they come to play Pirates at KPA. Obviously, without a doubt, they dominated the first encounter in terms of the scrums, and Pirates, learning a thing or two, I think, from that particular Cobs fixture, had I think many players come on off the bench, and they stabilized the scrum. So the one weapon that the Hippos had in that particular aspect was somewhat neutralized. I think as fans for this one, I think, to be fair to all of us, we need to we'll need to get a video, I think, on YouTube or somewhere. One of these refs who does these things, we need to get a video that talks about scrum downs, because the scrum is going to be a very vital tool, and would very much want all of us to be able to understand it or sit next to someone who can easily make the call. I think with the way the Hippos push the scrum, whenever the other team is moving behind, everyone just shouts ref, because we expect the advantage to go out. But there are particular instances where if the scrum is being pushed straight and the other team is just dominating without any infringement, there will not necessarily be a penalty that comes out of that. So I think that's an area that needs to be looked into from the knowledge, because without a doubt, we expect a scrummaging display from both sides come Saturday. And obviously, with those who will be available and the like, will be able to assist us understand. I remember early in the season, I think Kao at the time, Ernest and Gonzalo went through a course for the fans on what to expect in respect to I think the racks and the like, and also the changes of the laws on the scrum, where the scrum half will not necessarily be infringed upon once getting the ball. So the scrum half, in essence, gets clean ball at the base of the rack. So now, with that particular being changed now, I think one in respect to scrummaging is going to be very important. Those particular calls, angling, not pushing straight. Even me personally, I don't know most of them. Not, I think not necessarily, but then there is this particular call that I think the ref highlighted in the game, where I think Wangobo was the opposing scrum prop. I think was it. I don't know if it's Sevagala or whoever was moving a little bit behind. So whenever Wangobo was trying to engage, he would end up collapsing. So things like that. I think that's the call where the ref pull goes on the knee and tries to show like you're pulling him down. I think that's the particular call, meaning that you're not taking in the heat of the engage on the scrum. So those particular calls are going to be very interesting to follow this Saturday, and I think we'll try to put out something that helps get a basic understanding for the rest of us. Ruben, have you been able to follow the discussion? We're just going through the Cubs game and how people's scrum was quite dominant in dictating proceedings for them. Ruben, can you hear me at this moment, or it's still the same issue? Isa, you can hear me loud and clear?
Edwin, I can hear you. I think it's for Ruben,
Okay.
it's the network.
Okay. So that okay. Now, obviously, without preempting your team of the compiled team of the combined Hippos Pirates, what importance is that? Not even say tight five, but the eight that have been able to take them this far. I think in the games that they have played, I think Cobs of the teams, I think Cobs. I didn't watch the Higgins game in Ginger after they had lost to Pirates at KPA, but I think the understanding was that towards the second half there was more of like a stable scrum at one particular point. But how important has this scrum been for them to set up attacking platforms for them? And maybe from your end, if the problem, I don't know if in your metrics it's easy to understand what the penalty try was for, similar to what I think there was a particular game last season where Buffaloes even scored a penalty try off a scrum against Heathens. No, it was actually Buffaloes that did. So I don't know if in your metrics you're able to capture the reason for the penalty try.
The reason for the penalty try, the one of I think I had written something, taken note of it. The one against Cobbs Hippos. Edwin, that's the one of Cobbs Hippos.
No, I was just saying that I was just trying to emphasize the importance of the scrum. I think one of the spaces we had, one of the debates I think that was triggered by Coach Leo was in respect to how the team should be able to use the scrum as a tool of attack. And I think there was lots of debate around that, particularly how does a team, you could have the best scrum, but if you're not using it as a tool of attack, particularly gaining advantages through maybe score advantages through penalty tries, setting the platform for the team to score, then the scrum in essence just pushing is not necessarily the best. So the question came, what is the best scrum? And from my perspective, I'm basically asking, is there any record or metrics that we can use from your end that shows that the Hippos scrum in one or the other has been able to successfully obtain 7-point scores because of the other team being unable to withstand the pressure? So in short, how many penalty tries are we looking at from a scoring perspective that the scrum has been responsible for?
Coincidentally, it's Hippos that conceded a penalty try. But I do remember that debate that Coach Leo contributed to. I remember also something Coach Helen Koyokoyo clarified about. I think she said strike rate, scoring off the scrum. And for the second leg, there's something I have done for the semi-finals. At least there's something we call possession origin of tries. Of course, let's say you scored a try. Where did the possession begin from? Was it a kick from the opponent, a turnover, a handling error, a line out, a penalty, or a scrum? I think that the try that Chisiga scored, let's at Kings Park, that one originated from a penalty to Pirates. And then Massa had a tap and go. He ran, then he passed the ball to Chisiga. So for the game at Legends, Hippos tries were off the scrum in the opponent's 22. And I realized it was because of advantage. Sometimes you can miss a penalty. So in most cases, you're looking out for the penalty. So if they play advantage, you can fail to take note of the fact that there's been an impact of a scrum to sort of put the other guys at a disadvantage or to give a free play to their own guys. And it was later on in the second half data that we started recording the parts on advantage because there were chances where the advantage was working out for Hippos, and then you don't record the penalty for the penalty that would sort of elevate the Hippo scrum as having had the impact. But if you record the advantage bit, then you can actually record the impact of the Hippo scrum. So in terms of scoring, both tries that they scored were off a scrum in the opponent's 22. And in both cases, it was the scrum of Aziz picking the ball and diving over to score for Hippos. The other thing that you could measure is now you're not always going to get tries, but you need points, especially in a knockout game. So if the other thing you can measure is impact, which I'm yet to collect over when the other guys consider penalty try, do these guys actually opt to go for poles, or do they kick into the opponent's 22 or kick into touch near the 22 to get close and then execute? That is something I'm yet to compile. But at least on the scoring end, both tries came from the scrum. Then I would like to establish the penalties that where they chose to go for poles after the scrum had an impact in that area. And this was more prevalent in the second leg. In the first leg, I could check. I really don't recall seeing it that much in the first leg, but in the second leg, it was more rampant. Like Yasin was on a mission. I think he has attempted about 5 drop goals in both legs, and normally it was the drop goals he attended was when they had an advantage. I think about 2 were offer the advantage was offer rack infringement advantage to Hippos, and then in the second leg there was at least one drop goal he attempted after the referee signaling an advantage to Hippos due to the scrum performance of Cobbs. So when you compute this, you can actually see you can actually see now the points that have resulted from scrum pressure. I think that's something we can avail. Oh, for first leg, coincidentally, the possession origin for the first leg tries of Hippos were from lineouts, one in the opponent's 22, another in the opponent's half. And then the ones in the second leg were from the scrum. So that's something we shall sort of factor in. Points attained due to the scrum pressure delivered by their 8 men. Yeah, Edwin, anything else?
No, I'm trying to get Ruben back so that we can have the discussion about that particular fixture and how important the scrum was. But yes, I think from their perspective, as it was, I think what was very, very impressive of how they won that particular game on Friday was the scrum was used as a weapon to create a platform for offense, and it goes now down to, as we'll discuss later on just in a few minutes, about what needs to be done in the particular final is that and I think one of the fans we talked to on Saturday did say that Pirates does not need to focus on the scrums from his particular view. Does not need to focus on the scrums. They need necessarily to have a uniform game all round to be able to frustrate the Hippos. And I think that is an area we're going to dive into. And without a doubt, the Hippos scrum and not to preempt the team that Isa is going to give us or to bias it, but without a doubt that team will have lots of hippos if they meet the criteria that is going to be set in terms of what of games played and the like. So the parameters that Issa will choose, but the forward power that they have is quite impressive, and from that forward power they use the opportunities that are generated accordingly, either from a drop goal, penalty advantage, or the ability to kick the ball high in the air and let their wingers chase or the centers chase. And one of the things that was very, very critical in the first leg for Hippos was they had a particular set play where they were taking out one or two of the centers on offense, and that would obviously create the overlap for them. And I think they managed to score one particular try off that. They got Chimon off his feet as well as Ijogat in the first leg. That did not necessarily work. I think there was one particular moment in attack where they were very much neutralized by Cobs, but it still goes without saying that even with the backs of Hippos, they do have those particular set plays that allow them to break the line with so much ease based to the platform that the attackers, the scrum players have given them. And I'm also going to compare that with what particularly transpired in the game. When you watched the Heathens Pirates game, there were lots of line breaks. I think Heathens from those particular plays nearly had 3 or 4 line breaks, but then Pirates also made a move of their own that without sorry, because of poor Heathens defense, the game was made wide open. And without saying that, we have a match on our hands on Saturday to capture. I think from Cobb's perspective, they will always rule those missed kicks and opportunities that they had to get them back in the game. I think from the boots, they weren't necessarily effective, and that had an impact on the way they were able to close the game. And I think, as many people have been saying, is that Cobbs run out of time. Should you say run out of time, or Hippos in the instance where Hippos in the last game? And I think this is the key area of comparison that many have to pay attention to. From the last game, I think Hippos did not necessarily contain the ball in the last phases and last minutes of this game. And as a result of that, they exposed themselves to Cobbs too. push in attack, that last surge of attack. And as the result was in Ginger winning by 3, the impact was that Marcos Suna was able to score a try. So Hippos, with the clock running down, Hippos were in the right position to secure the win. They had the scoreboard on their favor. It was 22-22. And at that point, they had the opportunity to be able to put a late surge on their end, as opposed to them facing the pressure of having to defend. So in one way or the other, they have, Issa, I think we had a discussion earlier about this. You said that there's been an evolution in the way that they be able to play, particularly being able to learn a thing or two from the mistakes they have made. And with the scrum that was very, very dominant, they were not able to let go of Cobb's jugular at that particular point.
Yeah, it's what you call, I think you mentioned it when you hosted Timothy Boloti here, the evolution of a team. There are some losses you're going to take, not because you're a bad team, but the other guys have better mentality or better experience, and they'll take that day. But you need to be in these particular situations to learn over time. When you check, for the games I didn't watch, when you check the records over the years, you see names like John Echeru showing up over time. You've seen what was the Maidos. So it comes with experience. You learn that there's a time you played good rugby and lost to Cobs. That was in the previous years, but it also happened this particular year, especially the week 11 game. They felt they matched up well with Cobs, and they thought Cobs only won because they were Cobs. Same thing with the first leg. I remember, I think in one of the statistics I capture, Cobs got a lead after the try that was scored by Osuna in that first leg, with 1 minute, less than a minute to go, and Sempeke has to convert just to extend the lead on aggregate, but they had already bagged the win. So you could see they to me it was about mentality. That Andrew Jumba said it in the interview. I think that when you interviewed him, these guys have gotten a penalty try. It's in your head that this is what these particular guys do. What are you going to do about it? At that stage, all the coaching, all the, like I could say, all the rugby lessons you had, you have to throw them out of the window, and it's just about the mental aspect. On a side note, it's sort of the disagreement I could say the Hippos admin is having with our commander here, Ruben, of the team mindset and all that. It's we frankly, not to defend Ruben, but it's not something we had seen before from Hippos. And as a club, it's always something they will always expect from you. You win games, like I mentioned at the beginning. You win games, and it's like you're not getting recognition for your effort. So this was the game they had to win. This was Friday was the biggest game in up to that stage in Hippos tenure, and Saturday will be their biggest game because they've gotten over the hump of Friday. So at a certain point, it's about mentality, because to me, those late carries are a bit risky. Those late carries are it's a bit risky. A lot of teams have lost. If you've watched rugby for a long time, you could have seen teams losing games over, you're pressing in a late carry. You have all these, not a late carry, late carries. You have all these carries in the opponent's 22. You're chasing for a try, and then there is a knock on somewhere, and the game ends there, and then the post-mortem begins of whether you have it in you. But it speaks to the mentality that you stick it out. Because to me, I thought of these guys would go with an early strike. There were about 3 scrums when that game was ending, if I'm not mistaken. there were about 3 scrums at the end, and the only advantage or errors being committed were done by Cobbs. There was no error or jitters on Hippo's part. All of it, because Cobbs 22, camping in Cobbs 22 begins in the 75th minute. There is a line out, there is a carry, several carries, then there is a penalty against Cobbs for a tackler not rolling away. Then there is a scrum advantage Hippos. Then there's another scrum penalty. Then they go for another scrum. Then there's another scrum penalty, that's in the 78th, and I think that they go for the last scrum feed. The one where they gave Michael to a yellow card, and then Kakula came on for the last scrum of the game. So there's a lot of opportunities for errors to be committed by Hippos in that space of time, and for Cobbs walking out with their heads high and their reputation intact as the clutch team. But it went Hippos' way, and it says a lot for guys who played from the first minute to the last. The Maido and crew. In the first leg, if you remember, Siringiti was taken off for Jacoby. But in this particular, I don't remember him going off. So to me, it's the whole thing of just the mental capacity of seeing it through. I really thought they would strike with the first opportunity they had, and it didn't. So it is. They really stuck it out, and they got the win that they so deserved. Yeah.
And obviously, just before we jump into the other game, what do you think is going to be the key area that Hippos will need to do right to beat Pirates?
Pirates has been notoriously over time prone to stronger scrums. Notoriously they've had an antidote to stronger packs. They I don't know, it's in their DNA. They know how to, on a good day, they know how to neutralize stronger packs. So to me, it's in the tight five, Hippos will have an advantage, the intensity. But like you mentioned earlier on, Pirates has to play a complete game. They don't have to focus on Hippos' strength. Whereas you feel if they play, to me, if Hippos plays the way they played in the second leg, emphasize the strength of the scrum with a few tweaks here and there. The back line does what it's supposed to do. If you notice, I've not yet completed the compilation, but I think Yasin Waswa might have the most kicks in play from this weekend. The other weekend, he also had the most kicks in play. Because their strategy is simple. The back line is not going to dilly-dally in their own half for long. They're going to kick it deep into the other guy's half. So to me, I believe they can concentrate on the pack power. But Pirates has a deeper bench. They'll play 80-minute rugby. I don't know whether these guys can be able to do it 80-minute rugby for 2 consecutive weekends with the same 8 men and a few changes here and there, but we'll basically see. The other aspect is the line out is not something we've been talking about a lot. I feel there is some strength Hippos has there. They have about 4 jumpers. That's Mokisa, Opio, of course, and Rujumba. Siringiti did relatively well in the games they had against Cobbs. he really did. At least he did better than the game I watched. I think it was Evans or when they played Evans or Walukuva. I think that would be another that set piece that we don't talk about a lot would be something to watch. And the breakdown area due to the strength in the loose forward department of Pirates. The breakdown area is also going to be key. When you have the Aturindas on one side, Ziwa on the other side, you have Mukisa on this side, you have Wako on this side. I'll need to confirm, but Mukisa might be the Iron Man this season, given the consecutive starts he has made. But I'll need to check and confirm that. So those three areas are going to be key, and we might see. I'm not a betting man, but I believe we might see something special from the Hippos backline. For Pirates, we know how good their backline is. We know what to expect from the likes of Chisiga, but I think this game could spell something special for the Hippos backline. Beyond Waiswa. Of course, we know what Waiswa can do. We've seen what he can do, but the other guys, especially Kenya and Odoi, and yeah, Kenya and Odoi, yeah. So something special from them, and Kadambi, of course. Yeah. So those are my key areas about the grand final.
Yeah, as I get Ruben back on, I think also the line out is going to be very, very important. I think Serengeti and Jacoby are very good hookers. They can throw the ball quite well in the circumstances, and it's going to put they're going to use that as a platform to attack. I think Heathens in their game, as we jump into that one, I think they did. It was mixed feelings about the line out here and there. I think there's a kick, Aaron missed touch, a few line out balls that were not straight. Also from Pirates, and some balls were not necessarily clean, nearly resulted in a try where Tony Okello managed to get the best of Alex Aturinda, offloading that to Kato, but Kato's pass was not to hand, and that gave Pirates some sort of reprieve there. So the lineouts, I think, from just going by the eye test, I think the Hippos lineout looks more solid in terms of coordination and the like. But I think the teams have enough time to patch up. Both Hippos and Pirates have enough time to patch up their lineouts, and I'd very much want to see how that will work. I've not seen Hippos do a mall. I've not watched as many games as possible of theirs, but I'm very much hoping to see a game that goes all the way in terms of battle here and there. Ruben, what do you have to say about the Hippos Cobs game? Then we can jump into Heathens Pirates.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Finally. I don't even know where to start from because a lot has been said. But I think if subs could kill, I think I'd already be dead. They're just making me laugh. But I think this weekend has really given us good rugby, and of course, starting from what we saw on Friday from Cobs and Hippos. Congratulations to the Hippos. I think that there was that next step that we were all asking, some more vocal than others, that if they can be able to take that next step and get the job done when it matters. And I think that they showed that at Legends. One thing they have been doing, I know you guys have talked about the tactics so much, so I'm going to talk about trends and trajectory of matchups. Hippos has been very intentional, especially against Cobs, about starting the game strong, starting with the strong scores and then early enough to try and get control of the game. Their biggest issue has been how they have been able to close out games, and not only with Cobs, but also other teams that you now, with the current stature of the league, the teams you'd consider in their caliber. having looked at two previous encounters where they have played the Cobs and in similar fashion have had to lose a particular game, got me asking myself the question that is it a mentality or a mindset thing? And even just alluding to our interview with not coach, Captain Fahad Maido, after the first leg and what he said, not being happy with the bench, spoke a lot to perhaps maybe the intensity of those who come on to finish the game. And it, for anyone that pays attention to how those games have been lost, whether you've watched the game or you've just received a match report, especially in playoff rugby, you do not put yourself in a position to lose a particular game like that. And that's what I think that was the major concern, in my opinion, going into the second leg, that we have seen or against the big sides on a number of occasions that Hippos does have what it takes to play on the same field as some of these teams. But Hippos did not have the mentor or the game management to be able to close out these games. And that was my biggest question in all this. Do they, one, have I don't want to call it tactics because I think they do a really good job with tactics and everything if you look at what they do. But do they have what it takes to manage the game and see the game out? Or do they reach a certain point and maybe because of discipline here and there, maybe because of a lack of concentration, let themselves fall victim of that last minute curse that they have finally broken? And that is where that is where the conversation about closing out the game comes into play. Then it's easy to look at stats, and there's something different between stats and the eye test. You can win a bunch of away games and actually not really play your best in away games. You can't be very comfortable with the kind of score they had against Elgon Wolves in their away matchup. Also, then looking at their matchup against Pirates, in which they failed to use their park, which has been honestly considered dominant, and I think it has justified and lived up to the billing. And also, personally, I did watch the Rhinos game. The game they did win, but a game that they did necessarily play well. The one thing they did well, I think Issa has mentioned it, is really play the territory well, get themselves in a position, and then get their forwards to work. But then if you look at the general scheme of things for those that watch the Rhinos game, or for those who can go to NBA Sport and watch that game, I don't think they played well from an eye test point of view. So the stats might say one thing, but I think that when you look at some of the key matchups that have been happening, especially away from home, they have not been convincing, to say the least. Um, I will give them kudos, however, for the fact that even when they have not been playing their most convincing rugby, especially away from home, that they have gotten the job done, and that's a mark of a team that is starting to understand what it is to win. A win is a win, and somehow, even on your worst day or when you're not playing your best, you have to get that win, and that's what they have really, really done well. And I think that game on Friday at Legends was their best away showing in a while. I mean, for people that looked at the highly anticipated game, and I think match day 4, match day 5, something around there against Pirates, and how they were really obliterated out of that one, apart from a few highlight reels of the scrum really doing a thing. But really, were they in that contest? Then you compare it to this particular one, where now they came with clear intent and were able to build up a lead. But then again, there was a bit of a lapse of concentration in between there that allowed the Cobs to come back into the game. Keep in mind, this is a Cobs that has been struggling a lot with a number of injuries, especially in the park. So it was really a lot of patch up that was going on with the Cobs forwards to try and match this one. You have Kakula coming back from injury. You have some people out due to injury and illness or something like that. And you still have to show up. There was a conversation going on online about maybe could they have called for an uncontested scrum situation, which could have in one way or the other nullified what Hippos could have done. And it's an interesting conversation. But then knowing the kind of proud group that Cobs is, I don't think they would have allowed that in one way or another, unless it was maybe in a way dangerous to one of their players. Kudos to the Hippos that even in that short period of that a lapse in concentration where the pressure of the Cobs got the best of them and they had closed the gap, that they were able to regather themselves and find good territory towards the end of the game and go into that what I believe is a very surreal sequence of 3 or 4 scrums that were really, I think, the highlight of what they have been trying to tell all of us about their scrum. I've never seen Cobs look so helpless in a situation and in a scenario. Maybe even before just putting a pin on that, I did also get a complaint from someone that perhaps there was a part of their scrummaging that was not seen, that could have been slightly illegal in the angling, in the way they were pushing to get the advantage. And ideally, that is something that I don't know. You have to maybe revisit when you go back and then try and see if it is true, or it is just a case of a fan perhaps being disgruntled by the way Hippos was dominant. But going back to that particular situation, of course, now it goes back to fine margins and how unfortunate things were. If Joseph Aredo had found himself with a proper kick that didn't go straight into touch and then ideally got them considerable meters, just all he needed was a bounce before it went out, we'd probably be having a different conversation right now, and I'd probably be maybe vindicated with what I had said previously. But then, of course, as luck favors those who put themselves in a position to really get the opportunity, the ball goes dead, and then they come back for that sequence of scrums. Now, with that sequence of scrums, yes, I do understand and I do applaud them for that maverick mindset. Now that's all of a sudden manifested itself to one, put themselves in a position where they can be able to go for the penalty try. But then you ask yourself also, in the event that maybe that, knowing it was last player and it was 22-22, and you get the first penalty, you can look at it two ways. One, could it have been a bit dangerous to go for the scrum yet again, or rather try to opt for the kick and maybe send the game into extra time if you are prudent? But then, of course, fortune favors the brave, and of course, those that that take the high risks get high rewards, and kudos to them for that. I mean, if it didn't work out, then it would look wrong in from a game management point of view. But they went there, they stuck to their guns, and kudos to them. They according to the referees, their technique was very right, and they kept pushing. Constantly milking the penalty, and unfortunately, at one of the occasions, I don't know if Trevor Maina had been put in at or had been slotted to prop at that point when he got injured, and he had to be stretchered off. But kudos to them for the constant pressure. My question may be one thing that I need to understand, especially as I'm trying to further comprehend the scrum laws. At what point does maybe a penalty try come into conversation for them for that continued pressure? But then again, kudos to them for maintaining the scrum. I thought that they would keep that ball in and just try and walk it as much as possible, because the Hippos were, I mean, the Cobs were really, at that point, they had given up, especially the forwards. But Yasin Waswa, not Yasin Waswa, Aziz Bagal, are choosing to pick the ball and go in for the try. Like I said, your choices and whether they're only justified if they work out, and they did work out. One thing I will give them credit for is that they did see it through this time round. That in situations where they would be in the compromising situation to maybe give away points, give away a penalty, they were the aggressors at this particular point. Not being comfortable with the 22-all score and trying to say that they are closing out that game. Of course, I think they really did need to close out that game because they had played with 8 forwards without a substitution, which again could also be a bit of a tactical suicide on another day. But this time round, maverick mindset from the bench and from the players themselves on the pitch, and being able to get the job done. Kudos to that. What does it say going forward? Is that something that they can really try out again? Trick is to really confirm or deny. What does that say about what they are trying to portray about the players on the bench, the forwards on the bench? Can't they get the job done at the same intensity level? That's something we have to also ask ourselves. But in general, Hippos, I don't think it was an ability mindset. You know, one thing I've realized from this week is that people will understand what they want to understand, however much you try to explain to people. So I made a resolution not to explain to said party on the other side who was actually having a conversation with themselves going forward. I think I'd mentally checked out of that pointless conversation. But it was not a case of that they don't have the sheer ability or the sheer manpower to really get the job done. It was how collectively do they have the mindset to see off a team that is now at their level, or that they have now that's how can I best describe this? A team on which table they are now seated. How they can ideally see off this team to move to a final, to be able to get the job done. Last year, they stopped at the semi-final stage. We had seen so many worrying signs despite their impressive run in different games against smaller sides, which I don't think should even have been a benchmark while we're talking about playoff rugby. But when you look at those positions where they were bottling it to Cobs in the regular season, bottling it to Cobs in the playoffs first leg, and then also that key matchup that would have sent them top and ideally put them in a proper position to get home final advantage against Pirates, where they did not show up. Going into that particular second half, a lot was really was on the line, and it was not from an abilities point of view. I think they have some of the best players. I think on this space we have talked so much about Yasin Waswa being one of my best players, and me expecting a lot from him because I think he has the potential to be a very good number 10 for this country. Everyone knows what their forwards can do. I know Isaac Rujumba, you know, when he talks so much about the forwards, he does put some pressure on them, but they do have what it takes to back it up. But now, as a collective, how were they putting themselves in a position to actually manage these games to the end? Playoff rugby, you cannot come and sing to me how you have played amazing rugby when you've lost the game. It's pointless. What are you going to do with your stat sheet of, okay, we have carried all these things, we have won these scrums, and you have not won the game? And at the end of the day, that is what it's about, going to the next level. And that is what I think I'm happy about, that Hippos has now found the ability to take themselves to the next stage of being, of stamping their mark as a big side in the country. Everyone knows Hippos' story. From a side that was an invitational seven side and a predominantly seven side to what they developed and into a 15 side to a team that came into the now special premiership and trying to really find its way to now an established thing, an established team. I mean, kudos to organization, kudos to setup, kudos to their journey, which is a case study for many smaller teams to really pay attention to, especially when you're trying to see how you're building organically from one competition to the other, from one season to the other. But now, the question that everyone that was brave enough to ask that question and not really fear was that, can they get themselves to the next level? How can they back all the talk that is being put up by Hippos fans? And that is what we were asking. That's the question. That now we have seen them beat Cops, and now their next stage goes against who? Pirates. Now that's another level that they have to overcome. And why do they have to overcome it? It's because Pirates has 2 trophies. Cobs has, I don't know how many, 13, and Heathens has 17. So these guys have been there, they know how it's done, and they have showed us that they can do it. Yes, they may be going through the issues they are going through. But we are all excited by this new team coming on the block and really trying to upset the status quo, which frankly I think is good for the league. It's great that we are having Pirates and Hippos in a final without having Heathens and Cobs in a contention for the on, let's say, final day or maybe in the final stretch. How often have we seen this? How long has it been since we have had a title race or a title contention that didn't have the traditional two sides in this country? So us asking these questions, us actually trying to understand that, you know what, okay, Hippos has reached here. What can Hippos do beyond this point? Yeah. And that was what Friday was all about. And I think there is a lot that had to be learned. And I think even the players, to a certain extent, they knew that they had demons to exercise from previous bottled games they could have easily won. And Friday meant a lot to them, not just because they couldn't play, but because they could not see off games because of where they were in their mindset. And sometimes it could even be a self perception and the inferiority complex of maybe we are at this stage and this is maybe our current ceiling. But they have showed us that they can shatter that and they can go to a final. Now the next thing is going to be for them in that final. Can they also, one, go and fight against an impeccable home record of Pirates at Kings Park Arena? Can they make sure that they beat Pirates when it actually matters in 15s rugby? Because they are not sure that. We can allude to last year where they won a game at Dam Waters and then they went and couldn't match up the same intensity at Kings Park. So personally, me this whole week, that's the question I've been asking. Not taking any shade away from Hippos or what they can do or what they can't do. It's a great story for rugby, and I hope that we can see more teams like that. I hope Buffaloes can show us something. I hope Rhinos can show us something. That makes it a good competition and good for conversation, good for selling stories, good for building brand of this entire league. And kudos to them. Congratulations to them. Thank you to Hippos Rugby for actually adjusting, making the right adjustments, and finally seeing off the game. Because playoff rugby is only justified with a victory, and that is what they got, and that is what we wanted. End of story.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think the major thing from Hippo's victory is that for me is that how you can use the scrum to not only exert dominance in the game, but also to help accumulate scores and points. I think what Isometrics was showing here is that the scrum penalties conceded in the second leg, Cobbs conceded 5, and Hippos conceded 1. And in those scrum penalties, how many points did they score off the scrum penalties? I think they scored 2 tries, if I'm not mistaken, and then some. So I think some change there in the penalties, but that goes to show you how important it is. And I think now when we go into the discussion of Pirates Hiddens, I think for this one, obviously, a 5-point margin coming into the second leg at KPA Pirates yet to, I think, lose a game there this season. And for quite some time, I think they have the longest running home fortress record currently as we speak. And that will be put to test against the Hippos. But before they go to the Hippos, they had to first play Hiddens, whom Hiddens obviously coming into this one chasing, but having the opportunity to get a few players back in the squad. I think Patrick Okello came back. Michael Molo also was back. A few changes here and there. Hiddens also doing should I say, Frank Chidega with him not on the starting lineup, but eventually coming off the bench. But then eventually I think, a late minute decision to start. And with that particular game, I think the tempo was set from the onset. But I think for me, one of the things that was perturbing, at least from that game, I think that could show where it was going to be a long one was I think Heathens didn't necessarily off the kickoff start it off very well. The particular, I think, kickoff in question eventually resulted into a scrum down, if I'm not mistaken, at the beginning of the game. Yes, because what particular happened was that Kato got the ball and I think he had the angle to kick it out, but he passed to Malcolm. Malcolm's kick was touched down, and then subsequently Pirates also knocked on there in the process of trying to gather the ball. They had a scrum down in there, 22. But I think that set the tempo of where the game particularly was going. I was quite impressed with the way Hidden's scrum managed to assert the physicality as compared to the first leg where they were rather, I think, short on energy or the ability to dictate that kind of play. But from that game, I think what Pirates showed there was that even in the second half, when adversity looked to strike, yellow card early on in the second half, penalty try, another debatable penalty try that could have or should have been given, but they had nerves of steel to go ahead and then win that game. Issa, what do you have to say particularly about that game, and then we be able to run through the other parts of it?
Hello. Oh, sorry. I was a bit off. So you mentioned the Pirates Events game. To me, notably, Heathens usually, on most days, their kicking is very unreliable, but they do get a lot of tries. So not their kicking for goal, conversions and penalties is mostly unreliable. On most days, it's unreliable. So we rarely observe it because they do get a lot of tries, and when they're not converting, you can't. In most cases, you can't see these. So Saturday is a day where they needed points, and the points were not actually coming in. Yeah, the points were not coming in. That's how they managed to go into halftime on down 10-0. There was only one attempt at goal in that particular half, and Malcolm Okello missed it. And then in the second half, I think there's a time they were pushing for a try, and Nicholas Kato just dictated one of the penalties they got around the Pirates 22 on the lower side. Nicholas Kato just dictated that, you know what, guys, let's just go for polls. We've been pushing and this. I've decided. He's not the captain, but he's like, he dictated. And Malcolm Okello attempted, and he missed that one. Actually, all his attempts at goal for penalties, he missed them. So it's a day where they needed points, to be honest, and the points didn't materialize through the kicking, so they had to rely on the tries. And they found the determined Pirates in terms of defense, in terms of defensive rack hits. They were determined to see through. They were determined to go to the final. There was that moment akin to the Cobs Hippos game where you're like, okay, now Pedigree RFC is kicking in. This is the moment where Heaven shows up when the second half began. But Pirates showed a lot of mental toughness to recover from that. You could call it that duration of madness for Heathens, where they were sort of going to take over the game. I think the turning point was the line out that Sebagala got. I think it was judged not straight, and Patrick Okello was in the jumper was Ziwa. When Ziwa went down, the referee called it, judged it a not straight. They're going for scrum, and Patrick Okello was in Ziwa's face. Oh, and you could feel like that's, in most cases, that's the moment where the momentum shifts to the other guys. That's when Heathens becomes the Heathens of old, and they win, they go on to deliver points, score, and then we sort of think it's witchcraft. So the Pirates guys had a mini team talk, if you recall, in that moment. To me, I believe the mental resolve was going to the final. How they made it to the final started in that moment, that particular line out that Sebagala got wrong, rather that there was a judge not straight. I think after that there must have been a turnover. Was it a turnover or something? Yeah, and then it was some phases later the try, and then it was Pirates from then on. So it's a game where they really did try to Heathens really try to get the points on the board, shifting Wokorach to the back line, where I do not think he has played center this whole season until Saturday, and it really didn't materialize. When it comes to scrum performance, these guys were a bit from the eye test. They were a bit evenly matched, Heathens and Pirates, compared to how one-sided it was, visibly one-sided it was between Hippos and Cobs. Speaking of the lineouts, I believe they both could have done better, particularly there were a few that went wrong. I'm yet to really complete compilation on that. But noticeably, discipline in a knockout game, discipline has to play a factor. I remember, Edwin, I think we watched the World Cup final with you when the yellow carded that guy's name, All Blacks captain. Yeah. They yellow carded him and then they upgraded it to a red card, and I was like, as a contest, when they red card a guy, the game is practically over. In a way, you could say South Africa underperformed against 14 men to just win by 1 point. But it's hard to compete when you have a man down. And I looked at what happened with Roy Chizito, and then especially after he came back on when he was seen being, and Ernest kept on hinting on it that Roy has to be careful. He doesn't have to get into entanglements here, especially off the ball, that could get him sent off for good, and you don't want to be a man down. So I believe that was a crucial reminder for me watching the game on Saturday. This move, because where we are moving into the final, discipline will be a key factor there. It was a key takeaway that kudos to him that he managed to keep calm, and he didn't do anything subsequently after to warrant a send off. They'll need calm heads as well come Saturday for the final, both teams, I mean. So really there was a lot of suffocation on Heathen's part, and a lot of suffocation done by Pirates to them, and things didn't materialize. Another thing I've observed with the Pirates team is there's moments in the game where you realize things are like not going to go their way. I think in the first leg it happened in the second half at some point when they got into the Heathens 22, they kept on carrying, and then a penalty or turnover would lead them to losing all that ground, and then they go back empty-handed. And then you get a feeling that Heathens is going to make a comeback even when they reach the Pirates 22, and it didn't materialize. Same thing happened on Saturday, I think, around when the score was the beginning of the second half. But again, that mental fortitude that we talk about, they just keep digging deeper into it and then delivering wins. Jeremiah Okello was, I think, he's a leading candidate for most people's wing of the season. And moving into the final, I believe, is one try behind him. I think him and I forget the second person. One try behind Joseph Oyet, who doesn't get to play on Saturday, so he has a chance to if he scores 2, he's the outright top scorer. So assist wise, the passing game is key to Pirates play. That's why in most cases you're going to find there is more recorded assists on Pirates side than on Heathen side. There's a lot of pick and go in Heathen scoring. For Pirates, it's the running game and the passing. That's where we record the assists for Chisiga to the Bongodio try, an assist for Massa for the Kisiga try, an assist for Aturinda for the Jeremiah Okello try. So those were the standout factors for me from that second leg at Kings Park.
Yeah, I think also from my end, I think actually Jeremiah would have even scored 2 meat pies on the day had he not been infringed on the tackle. Not infringed. Infringed means it was like an illegal tackle, but had he not lost the ball in contact with Aaron Ofoiroth, who rather, after the incident, pushed his head in that ground. Guys, I think those small things may come to bite us in Rugby Africa Cup. But yeah, I think he pushed his head in the ground. After that, it was a knock-on. I think from a Hitten's perspective, if I could look at it, I think those particular things they do right in games that they win, especially against all odds, is where all those things were failing. All the things were failing. Passes to hand were not reaching. I talked about an incident where Aturinda was beaten to the ball by Tony Okello. He got the ball, he offloaded, Kator made his run, and then the offload didn't hit a hand. It actually went back to Pirates, and Pirates managed to get that ball. The Aaron Ofoiroth knock-on adjudged by the TJ on the far side, calling that one when it looked like a certain try. I think there are lots of set plays that Hiddens adopted that did not necessarily materialize into scoring opportunities. The window looked very good, but Pirates, I think, to their credit, and I think this is something that's going to be very, very important in the final. Pirates has very, very good scramble defense. If you go watch those particular moments, I think against Etoile got the ball. I don't know. I tried to ask someone who is a winger because I didn't want to judge things without knowledge that what is the best thing to do in this scenario where you get the ball and you have room on the 5. Do you run out or do you cut back in? But the way Pirates were able to stop him, I think Wanyama was one of the guys who cross-covered after Gokto had broken the line. Gokto took with him, I think, nearly 2 or 3 defenders and managed to offload, not an offload, but to hit a cutout pass to Etoile. And in the way the cover defense operated, it forced Etoile to cut back into Pirates' benefit. So those particular moments of, I think, cover defense goes to show how their defense in the final will also be very key. So Hippos have to be very mindful about their finishing. They have to be strong in the carry if they intend on having a chance. Also, another, I think, issue was that the Pirates' defense basically managed to stand tall and defend, especially in the first half when they came under lots of pressure when Pirates had taken the lead. I think one of those key opportunities that came in was when they had a scrum. I think this is the point. I think before, Issa, you made reference to when Kato pointed for posts and it didn't go in. But there was another time in the first half where he pointed for posts, but I think the scrum overruled him and said, let's go for a scrum. And at that point, when they went for the scrum, I think Massa and someone there of Pirates managed to hold up Tony Okello, and he wasn't able to ground the ball at that moment, and that resulted in a goal line dropout. Then also notably, I think that final patience from Heathens to go and to stop a ball, to necessarily dictate that play that is very strong for them. If you notice, most of the Heathens plays that got them quite far were coming out of the backs, particularly that cutout pass from Nicholas, avoiding the, what do they call it, the medical team, and getting Michael, who released Okeni, resulting in that penalty try. And then Aaron, obviously, at 9, managing to score the try off a well-executed scrum. But I think for what Pirates did very, very well in this particular game is that they kept it as solid as possible. They got the mismatches they needed and wanted, and were able to dominate. I think you could clearly see the try that Sydney scored in the second half, that they had the opportunities on the outside at all times to be able to score in this particular game, notwithstanding the pressure. So for all that were infringements or whatever, I think the Pirates, what they did well was that they're able to stabilize the ship. And I think when you go back and watch that particular game against Heathens, from the Pirates side, you could clearly understand why Alex Aturinda was man of the match. The guy was very mobile, creating a try, stealing balls in open play, and he was all over the place, creating a few passes were going to hand, but they eventually going to touch. But his particular role was to help the backs. It was like having an extra back on the field. Instead of 7, there were 8 backs in addition to 8 forwards. So he played that, should I say, even that combined role very, very well in terms of allowing the teams to be able to flourish and dominate. But I think we have some speakers on. Let me allow Fred to just come and say his remarks about the game with the Hippos and Cubs, and then tell us what his thoughts on the final are, or what will be. Fred, you can unmute and speak.
Wow, everyone is speaking and no one is flowing the Nile River. First of all, I wanted to comment the first part of the Hippos being very lucky. If you if you followed the proceedings of last week, you realize that sometimes it's not just about luck, but Hippos has come from somewhere and they built it. For them to go on a Thursday and wanted to do a captain's run, something that has not been done in local rugby, especially for away teams or something like that. And they arrived on Thursday early enough, and even on the same day on Friday, which I in a way we feel like so on a Friday at least the game was big, but the first on Friday arrived on time, arrived before those guys entered the pitch. Mentally, Hippos was ready for it. They were preparing for the win. They didn't come to wait for the win. And that last chaos, the chaos that happened in the last minutes, I don't know so much. I am not a referee, so I cannot explain why they didn't give Hippos a penalty try after the third infringement, when the referee gave it the penalty for the third consecutive time. So going back to the game, I thought that Hippos had learned something. And if you looked at the lineup, because for Cobs, they preferred the normal 6-2 on the bench. Hippos went to the 5-3. And then that's when Bakasa came in the last minutes to try and push in. It was something that they had learned that we normally have that problem. When I say we, of course, we are Ginger. So we normally have that, we had that problem, and it was causing us issues. Even when we played the semifinals last year, we had Hippos missed a try in the last minutes because of a knock-on. And maybe in a way, you can attribute it to the inexperience of the club, of the team. So after that, we lost Odhiambo, actually, who made that knock-on, I think, in the last in that semi-final, and then lost so many players. So most of these players that are in the team have just come from the setup, the structures of Hippos 2, and so forth, and they've been trying to understand, because this club, in a way, even when you look at the current management, which you call the executive, is part of the fans things. They were promoted to such to that level. They are understanding that there is something that we need to do. That is something that Sogi tried to explain to them very early in 2019 and 2020. So they are trying to implement it, and it is reaping, by the way. Even the fans are starting to believe in it. If there's no one who believed in Hippos that they were going to overturn that 3-point gap when it was 25-23, 22 in the first leg, I think the Hippos fans believed it, the club believed in it. Now, going into the game proper, we have several
Fred, you have dropped off. Are you still there? Fred, are you still there? I think Fred has dropped off. I think he'll come back. Maybe let's talk to one of from the Pirates, Kappa Chimeze. Kindly unmute and give us your thoughts of the weekend.
Thank you very much, Edwin. Can you hear me? Just drop a thumbs up. Yeah, thank you very much, Edwin and Fat Cats. Where should I start from? It was a long weekend to say, but we thank God for the victory. We thank God that both teams put up a good show of rugby, and Paris managed to come on top of it. So, my few cents from the game. Of course, both teams came well prepared, like you saw. Halftime was 10-0. Of course, the goal was to remain focused, to remind the guys that we have a bigger target, we have something to achieve. Once you remember the first leg, the regular season game at Kings Park, halftime was 31-9. Yeah. But we just had to remain focused. So 10-0 was really, really a close score to call the game off. So, as expected, the aliens, of course, turned up in those first minutes of the second half. But I'm very glad that the boys remained focused and they stuck to the plan. That Sydney try coming in very, very timely. I think you people have seen the comments, the vids, but yeah, he had the men on the outside, but it's there to go Kanyama. And luckily, he broke the silence at Kings Park. So we take it as a normal league game. That's another final down. The boys are still focused, yeah. They're all set up and camp. The goal is not yet done. We are looking up to 10th May, and hopefully everyone will show up that day, and we hope to secure the win. I think I take this opportunity to invite all sports lovers, not just rugby fans, to come out to Kings Park this weekend. Come out in large numbers. Come support good rugby. I know majority of the crowds will be coming to hate watch, but whether it's hate watch or you're there for the fun, please come out. Let's enjoy Kings Park. Let's enjoy the rugby chill. I very much know there will be lots of offers and happy hours to be announced, and lots of entertainment. Then lastly, I also congratulate both teams, that's Hippos and Pirates, for making it to the final. For those ones who have been following rugby, it's been quite a tense period for the past 1 month for the playoffs. Watching games Friday, Saturday, Friday, Saturday. It's been a bumpy ride to say. And then to the rest of the other teams that were part of the league, I would also say congratulations and big up to them. It's a big fight to be in the league. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so TM, obviously a tight game from your perspective, how it ended, how you managed to get to the final. But when you have the players rest and come to terms with what has transpired to get to the final, what particularly is in the Pirates camp right now? What are the final touches looking like, without divulging too much detail of game plans? But what's the focus like? What does the team do in instance like this? Is your second final in a row, and what is it that you're going to do different this time?
Thank you very much, Edwin. Of course, with the new championship format, each game is a final per se. From the word go, from the season opener, you have to win all your games. Yeah, if you want to be lucky enough and host the final. Give an example of Heathens. Heathens last season, they had a very, very good run. They ran over everyone. They had the chance to host the final, which they won. So our preparations are more or less the same. We're taking this game very, very serious, though it has been part of the roadmap from the start, because when we started the season, I think those ones who follow rugby on a more keen level, save for today, Joseph Mani said he can't waste time on people who only watch rugby on Saturday at 4 p.m. Yeah? So for those ones who interact with rugby more often, I think you can recall our head coach Marvin put out a statement, and I think it was by Fat Cats, where he said, for every game we shall take part in, we have to come out victors, or we have to win. So it has been part of the roadmap. I would want to say we started preparing for this game from as early as January when we started the season preparations. We thank God that we have made it this far. The boys, of course, are working hard. The mood is still the same. And we know that, yes, we say each game is a final, but now this is the final of the finals. So we'll go on our side. Hopefully the result will be in our favor.
Okay, thank you for that. Let me just bring back Fred now. Fred, I think you jumped off. Network issues. Kindly continue submission. You're talking about the game of on Friday. I think what I recall is you talked about the scrum penalties and penalty tries, but and what it took to prepare to come to Ginger. But what is the mood like in Ginger, especially with where the Hippos reaching their first final of the Premiership or of any 15s competition?
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, it has been a journey for Hippos. You know, Hippos and Walukwa uh, are descendants of the Nile FC. When Nile broke up, Hippos went its own way in Damswater and remained in Damswater, and the other ones left. So from that time, Hippos has been growing and Walukwa has been growing, but Hippos has grown faster. Why Hippos had actually prayed for Heathens in the final is because we really wanted to play it in Ginger and finally tell Sogi that this is what we have done. This is what you told us. In 2019, when I was coming to start being part of the club, to help them in the media and communications departments, Sogi asked me one thing, that every year that Michael Korach comes to play in Ginger, I should ask him how much has this thing grown. And he told me the day that Michael Korach's team, whether it is Heathens, whether he has gone to any other team, the day that he will come and he doesn't win, I should stop asking him. That was last year. Last year we beat Cobs in the first 15th game in the league. That was in Ginger. That was our first game. Then we drew. Actually, Heathens came from a point for 17 down. I think we drew 2020. Then this season we beat them. In fact, this season Hippos was supposed to beat Heathens with the bonus point. Hippos are believing. It's not just that it's luck. They are really believing in this thing, that they are going to do it. If you watched last week, in the first leg, we had Sempeke kicking around, and it is his kicks that made them go with that 22, 25, 22 advantage. The second leg, they brought Aredo. After that one, after Ankore and the Waiswa, I think from what I saw from isometrics, I think Sempeke and Redo had the best kicks in the whole season in terms of conversion rate. This man beat them in that, and he was trying to do the drop goal and so forth. There are signs that there's something that is coming. So Hippos were trying to do it. You remember even that last scrum that they were trying to push it. We had a chance to kick it and go for the penalty, the sudden death. The last sudden death that Hippos did was when we were playing at Chavazinga Sevens, and that we were playing against the Mongas when Wako scored that sudden death. And that's when we went and won it at the 2022 Sevens. So Hippos are believing, and they're not just believing because they have some goals of thinking, but the boys have grown. When you look at last season, we lost so many players to Kakira, about 13 players, including the 2020, I think 2020 or 2021 top point scorer in the league, Maxwell Bonga, and so many players went. Last season, this at the beginning of the season also, among the people we lost was Andrew Diambo, who was our best player, who was the best try scorer in the normal league, in the regular league last season. So these guys have organized it. They didn't go and look for very many people outside, but they just started pushing the hippo spirit from inside. This thing that you're seeing that hippos is moving, people asking who is sponsoring hippos, who is running hippos. It is the fans. Even the current executive committee are the fans. We just upgraded some fans and told them, no, you've been doing this thing and now you need to do this. Step up and be there. So it is very hard to know who is running this, who is running what and who is doing what. So for us as Jija, we are very happy about it. And I can tell you that after beating Cobs in that last minute thing, because Cobs has been beat us twice in the last minute, but this time it turned against them and we're showing them that no, we can also do this. There's no one that Hippos has not beaten, including Pirates itself. Pirates beat us last season because Andrew Diambo had a knock on the last minute when we were in the second round, in the second half of that game. This season they beat Hippos, and many people don't want to accept it, but the truth is that we had that challenge that so many of our players were going into the fast, and they were in the first 5 days of fasting. In a way, they were our back players, and they needed to run and so forth. So for us as a Ginger community, we are coming to Kampala, but we're not coming there for fun. Really, this is something that we're looking into it. In 2022, we had the double success. Ginger Hippos won the sevens, and then Bull. Bull and Ginger Hippos, in a way, are almost the same thing. The fans are almost sharing each other. This time we are really going for it, and I don't see where we are going to lose it. We are very happy that this young man, and I want you to watch that young man called Lameriga. That boy in that line is lightning fire. I think after Emily Rukulu, we might not see someone else who is faster on that line that name. We're happy that also Aziz Bagalan is back. You saw that we missed him in the first leg on that game, but in the second leg, you saw what he did. He actually scored the first scrum when people are asking about the best scrum in the country. I don't even think that even in East Africa, there's anyone who is still arguing about the best scrum, because he pushed and touched down, and in the last minute again did the same. So we still have that. We lost Owen Mogogo. I think he was our second kicker who will assist Yasin. What happened to Yasin in between the season is because I think maybe he was called to the national team and he was having a lot of pressure. But what he did last week shows that he has grown out of that pressure, and I think he's ready for the final. The final will be about kicking and the scrum. I don't think, besides maybe luck, I don't see technically and tactically how Pirates will really scrum Hippos out, and Nkore, I don't think he will outkick, because Nkore played against uh, uh, Heathens and missed some kicks out of pressure, maybe, or so forth. But now they have also Ivan Magomo, whom we have also to look about. So it will be about the small details. But whatever happens, I really think that it will end 23-22.
Ruben, 23-22, what do you have to ask these two gentlemen?
Man, people, one thing I'm really loving about the Hippos faithful is their confidence. I think it's amazing, and I think it's what we need for this game. I think it gives us a lot to talk about. Before I even ask anything, first I want to just clarify to Fred Mwabo. First of all, Fred, well done with all that you do, with the work that you do. Secondly, I just wanted to clarify on your I don't know if it's a rebuttal or just a response, that no one said that Hippos is lucky. No one used the word luck. We used fine margins. We used change of mindset that adjusted to change in outcomes and closing games. No one said luck, so let us not peddle that luck phrase. I think the one thing I've always been curious to ask. I have two questions for one for each of the speakers we have. Kapa Chimeze, maybe is it possible for you, of course, without revealing too much, to give us just a bit of a download on how a typical team manager's preparation is, especially now. Now let's look at championship week. Now, like the week has started, what's your preparation like? for you and for the team to be able to prepare what the boys need to be set for the weekend. Then for Fred, maybe with Ginger Hippos and all the achievements, of course, everyone is in amazement of so much progress that has been that has gone through the camps in Ginger Hippos. But I want to understand more from a benchmarking point of view. What would you ideally share with some? I don't you know some players, not some players, some people take it as an offense to say that some teams are smaller, but for lack of a better word, what would smaller teams benchmark or learn from a team like Ginger Hippos that has ideally found some teams in this league and surpassed them when it comes to results and perhaps even the way they run their affairs as a club? I think Kappa should go first.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ruben. I hope you can hear me.
Solid.
So, yeah, that's actually a very wide question, but I don't know if some people are already dozing off, but let me entertain those on night shift. So as a team manager, you actually have a very, very long week, because now for my case, championship week, and now we're in the deep waters of it. Of course, to start with, after the game, let's say Saturday's game was a 3 p.m. game, so by 5:30 we're done. We're basically done. Yeah. So you have to make sure these players are not dilly-dallying in your kit, yeah, here and there, because the kit has to be washed and treated. All prepared for the next week. You have to catch up with the logistical side of things. Yeah. How much water has been used? What do we need for next week's training sessions? What's missing? Who got injured? Yeah. Luckily, we didn't really pick up any injuries, and those are now not worries that you have to follow up with a sick bay. Then getting into the new week, you have to start your week as early as Wednesday or Thursday. What medical supplies do you need? What personnel do you need to deploy this week? How many doctors, how many coaches are you moving with? Yeah. All those things. Now, if you have an away game, it also becomes a little bit harder. You have to book the transport, accommodation, feeding plans. What are the travel plans? Which players of yours are working till 3 p.m. or 4 p.m.? How will you handle the game management without them? So all those. So basically, by Thursday, after that training at Kings Park, I have to be now locked into what the game day is going to look like. So from Friday evening to Saturday 4 p.m., I'm only thinking about one thing. Yeah, what time shall we be at KP? How do we make sure that by 1 p.m. everyone is there? 1 hour to kick off, everyone is kitted up. Yeah, training. You see, I'll be telling people that as a team manager, you have to, on game day, you have to think for about 25 people. That's the 23 players, your doctor, and the coaches. Who's going to be late? Yeah, who needs to be reminded now and then? But it's quite a challenging and interesting job. Yeah. Though, of course, the malaria is really, really real. So by the time I get to game day, things be happening, and I'm like, nekino kigwe banaye tugende ku kirala, because you have already had a week and a half. But yeah, for this week, I'm in high spirits. I believe in my boys. My goat is playing rugby this weekend, and the whole world is happy. Nze nga Balamu Wankole nina okukayisaawo awo. The top scorer will be in action, and hopefully we shall get for that MVP award and the championship as a whole. I hope I've answered you, Ruben. Maybe for a more detailed story, we shall meet at Gardens one of the days after the championship. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think it paints a picture, and it is brief but elaborate. Man, your week is very busy on top of your day job and everything else you have to do. But kudos for your service. So, Fred, over to you.
First of all, I have to tell the team he has some in his speech spoken very well in his submission, but he has some fear. I don't think he can cross the River Nile when the storm is on. So otherwise, what you talked earlier, Hippos. First of all, Tororo is part of Hippos. Tororo came out of Hippos. That is Big Timo. Kakira, which is coming to the league, we're bringing the third team in the league, also came from Hippos. You're asking me what other clubs should do. That is what they should do, that they must build the fan base and make sure that people feel it. In Hippos, it's almost a club, it's almost a family, that you really don't know who is the chairman, who is the what, who is the coach. It's very hard even to know. If you ask some of the fans who is the captain, they will not know between Wako, Aziz, Waiswa, Rujumba, or so forth, who is really the captain. So it's something that is well knit, that it's just a family movement. This is a movement. Even if you look at the fans, how they are moving and how they are coordinating, that's how we've been moving. And that's what Sogi tried to build since 2019. And that's what we are moving through. So we're trying to build that as part of the Ninja community, but of course, Hippo is the Macue brand. Talking about the players and how they are integrating with the community, one of the players that has really helped the club to grow, I will say, is Isaac Rujumba. It's I don't know if you knew, but Isaac had his issues, but he has finished almost a full year without drinking. So this guy just left it and said he's remaining only in Jinja only to play rugby and build. Apart from Isaac, the only other person who has won a trophy, a title, is Ricardo Quaresma. Edmond Quaresma, Ricardo Quaresma, when he played the Queens. So those are the only two guys who are really helping this team to understand what it means to reach where we are. So if you look at last week's game, these are the people who brought that idea that this is what we should do. And then other people, Tim Groover, the chairman, and so forth. So I wish the team up to this level.
Yeah, thanks for that. Of course, I think we need to have a lot more of these diverse personalities really come and give us an insight look at some of these clubs. I mean, what you've mentioned about Isaac Rujumba is great to hear. I mean, your mini tribute to the late Robert Seguya was also amazing to hear, and just how there's a benchmark from that point of view into what we are seeing of hippos now. I think it's so amazing. But yeah, I think those were my two questions, Edwin, for the two gentlemen. Yeah, personally, I really wish both teams the best. I think it's going to be an interesting game. I don't think there's going to be a very big, significant dominance at scrum time, as was the case with Cobs. But I do think that Hippos have the upper hand when it comes to the forwards. If they are going to play the 8 forwards for 80 minutes is another conversation, which I also am curious to find out. Are they going to employ the same tactic, or are they going to try and incorporate some of their subs? One thing maybe Fred can clarify on is I don't know if they're also injury free, as Kappa had alluded to the Pirates side. So that is one thing that we'd want to know. I pray that they are not injured.
Ruben, I think you went off.
And you
But for those of you still on here, thank you very much. I think Kappa Chimize and Fred, thank you very much for taking your time off to join us here to discuss this. For me, all I can say is that good luck in your game. I think it's going to be a very interesting one. I think both teams have rich stories they have to tell should they win. And the rather unfortunate bit about sport.
Edwin, you're muted. Edwin, unmute. Kappa, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I say bombo clat. Edwin has no data. Anyway, I call upon all those guys with data and those ones without to please come out to Kings Park this weekend. Come support Ugandan rugby. I don't know if you can still hear me. I got a notification that Edwin has data problems.
Well, I can hear you.
Yeah, so as I was saying, I call upon all rugby fans to come support rugby. In fact, I say sports lovers in general, come and support rugby because at Kings Park we are cooking on and off the pitch. We can't wait to serve you people with the best rugby day out ever. Rugby Chill is cooking, Kings Park is cooking, Pirates is cooking. I guess also the fans must be cooking. So let's be there, let's crown off this championship in style. Of course, I continue to congratulate both teams for making it to the final. But my prayer is that my boys deliver that third trophy to the cabinets. I know we have had a hell of a season to say, ups and downs, but they have kept focused. I congratulate my captain, Frank Chidega, on the 100 appearances. It's not easy. Captain Alex on the 50 and that MVP performance. There are some picks that I've just put out now where 6 seasons players were around Alex, and I don't know how that guy does it, but those runs well in. Also big up to the entire technical team at Pirates. I see Byron Okuba here and all my players who are tuned in. Sido for being selfish but delivering that try. And also big up to my man